Caps Faceoff Live, presented by Geico.
It's game day in the district on this chilly Saturday afternoon. Your Washington Capitals getting set to face the Vancouver Canucks for the second time this season. We all remember what went down last time these two faced. It was a wild one, quite possibly the craziest game so far this season for the Caps. So we are sure in for our show tonight as we welcome you into Caps Face-Off Live, presented by Geico. I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Brent Johnson and Courtney Lachlan. You guys, Caps looking to rebound from Wednesday's night's tough loss up against the Rangers. Brent, what were your initial thoughts from that game?
A little bit flat, but I think just flat execution-wise. I think that the Caps were pretty good, but they just couldn't find the net. They had a few posts that night. I'd like to see a reprisal of the game from last week where they played the Anaheim Ducks. They spread the offense around. You had contributions from all four lines that game, so I'd like to see something like that against Vancouver Canucks.
I think the game, you mentioned a couple posts, Brent. I think the game could have been a little bit different if the Caps had hit the net instead of hitting those posts. 23 posts now that the Caps have hit, the most in the NHL. So they've got to capitalize on those opportunities. I thought the penalty kill was a little bit exposed, but to me, Brent, you mentioned, some D-zone coverage, not just getting, I think, in the right positioning. And that's just mental. When you're playing the game, you know the structure, you know what you're supposed to do in the defensive zone. So to me, it's just making sure that they fix those mental errors and block down and stay tough in front of the net.
Time to play smart, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're breaking down everything that you need to know about tonight's game. And I bet you didn't know this guy had a side gig. Yep, Alex Ovechkin delivers on the ice and to houses when he's playing pizza delivery man for Papa John's. How about that? Tonight is also Hockey Fights Cancer Night at Capital One Arena, a night where the hockey community will come together in support of cancer patients and their families. We'll see you in just a moment for more Caps Face Off Live. Welcome back to Caps Face-Off Live. It's Hockey Fights Cancer Night at Capital One Arena. Your Washington Capitals getting set to face the Vancouver Canucks tonight. A rematch from the wildest game between these two teams late in October. Jordan Giorgio, Brent Johnson, and Courtney Lachlan here for your pregame coverage. Guys, let's get into who we're seeing on the ice tonight, because the Caps are still without Garnet Hathaway, who is facing a 3-game suspension. They're also battling some injuries. Nick Dowd, Carl Hagelin, and Nicholas Backstrom are all out with upper body injuries, so they had to make a few roster moves. We will see Beck Mallenstein and Mike Scarbosa again on the ice tonight, as they were brought up from Hershey. Brent.
Yeah, well, you saw Mallenstein in his first NHL debut the other night in Madison Square Garden. And I read some of his comments after, and they were great. I mean, having the butterflies, saying that he almost felt like puking going on the ice. And you know what's phenomenal about that is that, the first game for your debut, you go out on the ice and warm up and you do things on your own. And, to do that in Madison Square Garden, I'm sure he felt like puking. So he had an absolutely excellent game. I mean, you see his chance early in the first period there, but Henrik Lundqvist came up big. It's things like that Scarbosa, Mallenstein have to do. I think if you can chip in offensively, that's a bonus. It's great. But you know what? You don't want to be a liability defensively, especially. So keep the game simple, keep the puck in front of you, move the puck when you can. I think that they both played a fantastic game, especially Mallenstein looked very, very comfortable after the first few shifts in. But, it's tough. They didn't get they didn't get what they wanted in a win especially for Mallenstein playing in his first game. But for a journeyman like Scarbosa, who's been around and with Florida and other teams, Colorado, I think that he knows he knows how to get into the game like that. So he looked comfortable as well.
What was going through your mind, your NHL debut? Did you feel like puking too?
Or did you?
Yeah, or did you spill the tea, Brent? Come on.
I did not. I was no Glenn Hall. You know the story about Glenn Hall, how he puked before every game. You guys don't know that, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
But
that would be me.
I was no Glenn Hall. I was nervous, but remember my first game, I kind of got into it because I was in for an injury, so it made it easier on me. But the more you think about it, the harder it is, truthfully.
Oh, I'm sure, for sure.
I think, Brent, you talk about Beck Mallenstein. I think he's the guy that has a little bit more to prove in this situation than Scarbosa. Scarbosa's playing in his 50th NHL. You mentioned teams that he's played for, Colorado Panthers. And I love the way that Mallenstein played given everything, playing in Madison Square Garden under the lights, playing against one of the greatest goaltenders of Henrik Lundqvist. And I think he's the guy that the Caps are really looking at to see, is he the future? When can he step up and make an impact on this team? He's only 21 years old, unlike Scarbosa, who's 27. So I think, if anything, it's more of a barometer for Malenstein to see when he's able and when he's ready to come up and play for the.
How much pressure really is on them?
Other people are looking at this too, right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, there is a kind of spotlight when you come up from the minors, and that's kind of shown brightly on you, especially in your first game.
Do you really feel the weight of the world kind of on your shoulders, just the pressure?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think the pressure, would be off them more so on the road, like it was in Madison Square Garden. But I think the pressure will be mounting up a little bit tonight on the youngsters.
All right. Well, I want to get into this discussion. Something I think we can all agree on is that this penalty kill was not up to par in the last game. They allowed 2 goals for the first time all season Wednesday night against the Rangers, and that needs to be cleaned up before the Caps play a Canucks team that ranks in the power play 4th in the entire league tonight.
Who also scored 5 power play goals against Nashville in their last game. I just think, look, I'm not really worried about the Caps penalty kill. I just think the biggest thing is that they have to make minor tweaks and adjustments. And that's what you do after any time that you play an opponent and you're not happy with your performance. And when you're playing the next opponent, you look at how their power play and penalty kill is set up. And that's when you make those little adjustments. Todd Reardon said that they looked at all 5 power play goals that the Vancouver Canucks scored, and they're going to make some adjustments. I think the biggest thing with Vancouver's power play is there are no one-timers, meaning that you have your offs, you have your guys playing on the left side that are lefties, and guys are on the right playing on your right, which means every time that those 2 players, it's usually Besser or Pettersson, sometimes Bo Horvat, when they get the puck, they are thinking shot first. They're not taking a one-timer. Their hips are square to the net. Their sticks are square to the net. They take shots from everywhere. So I just think the biggest thing for the Caps is making sure they box out, be tough in front of the net, pick up sticks. That's how they're scoring. They're just shooting the puck and they're getting tips and deflections. So I think the biggest thing is just don't chase too much either. I watched the Nashville game, and Nashville was all over the ice. So Caps need to make sure that they pressure, I think, under control and not get caught running around.
Well, I mean, you go back to Panarin's for the first power play goal in Madison Square Garden, and what happened was they did chase. They chased the puck. You saw Panic got caught high, which left Siegenthaler to kind of resort to going down, sort of, to block the puck, where he ends up screening Braden Holtby, and Panarin makes a perfect shot, which he's known to do. But on the second one, it was more of the second goal against last game was more of a bad bounce. I think the Caps kept their box pretty tight, and it was just a bad bounce off a shin pad that went directly to Panarin for an open net. But I completely agree with you. If the Caps are in good shot lanes tonight, I think that they should be fine boxing out in front of the net, allowing Braden Holtby to see the puck, if that shot comes through. And, a thing that you kind of touched on, Courtney, was that, they don't have that one-time option. But another thing with that is that it's more difficult because the goaltender has to be ready for either a shot or a pass. That's the tough part about not having a one-timer on your
You don't know what
play.
they're going to do. They're deceptive. They can either pass or shoot.
The biggest difference maker Wednesday night's game was missing some PK weapons in Hathaway, Hagelin, and Dowd?
Sure, of course that's going to affect your penalty kill in your systems, especially when you have guys like Malenstein that have never played the Cap system per se in an NHL game. But I think they go back, they look at film, they watch what Vancouver does, and I think that they'll be better off coming into today's game.
Not too much film.
That's true.
This morning, because they'll fall asleep.
Yes, that's true.
It's tiring.
Just like us, these are
I know, right? It's an early day.
games.
That's for sure. All right, let's move on because you guys, I can confirm Alex Ovechkin can do it all. He not only delivers on the ice, people, but in his free time, he's delivering pizzas house to house around the community wearing the greatest shirt of all time that says pineapple belongs on pizza. Don't at me. I would have to say this is the first time ever I don't like something Ovi has done. I'm not the biggest fan of pineapple on pizza. There, I said it. What can I say?
It's
no fruit on pizza. That's your style.
I'm more of a like a plain cheese, white pizza, little maybe
pepperoni?
truffle oil.
No.
Oh no, I can't stand
What?
pepperoni. I know it's terrible.
Canadian bacon. No.
I'm not going to say it because
Canadian
people are going to
bacon
come
and
after me.
pineapple.
I'm not a big bacon person. I know it's terrible. Honestly, a blessing in disguise.
Okay.
You guys saw that team that Ovi was going in. He did that at MedStar Capitals Iceplex, and I was on the ice when Ovi was in the locker room because that's one of the teams that I coach. You know, for the Caps Academy there, and he was walking by. He had some pizzas, and the kids were just pumped, and I was sitting there like on the ice. Ovi,
can I get one of those?
Ovi, remember me. Remember me. Didn't even. I don't think he saw me, but it doesn't matter. It's the funny part is that those kids were so pumped when they came out on the ice. Oh, I got this signed from Ovi. I got that signed from Ovi. It was so phenomenal.
How was practice when Ovi walked in with the kids on the ice? Did they listen to you after that?
The kids. It took them 20 minutes. It took them 20 minutes to get on the ice. You know, because everyone was so pumped up and excited. So. No, we had a great practice, but I was like, come on, hey, listen, I used to play for the Caps. I mean, I offer you guys advice, you know, as they're skating away from me, so what can you do?
Right, I can't imagine Ovi showing up at my doorstep, too, with a pizza. I mean, just unbelievable. I wonder if anyone didn't recognize him, but we got to go to a quick break, but when we come back, we're talking to the players only, Craig Laughlin, Alan May, and of course, Brent will be there as well to discuss who they think should be Coach of the Year based on what they've seen so far this season. Stay with us for more Caps Faceoff Live. Welcome back to Caps Face-Off Live. Here's a look at the current Jack Adams Award race given to the Coach of the Year. Barry Trotz and Dave Tippett are neck and neck. Todd Reirden isn't in the lead, but no worries, he's still up there. Let's bring in the guys who know Reirden and your Washington Capitals the best in Brent Johnson, Alan May, and Craig Laughlin for Players Only. Guys, we've talked about it before. It is looking like this is really Todd Reirden's team this year now that he's in his second year as head coach. What have you guys seen from Reirden in year two that has really stood out as opposed to last year? Alan, let's start with you.
I think the biggest thing with Todd is the adjustments that the team had made over the offseason. I guess you could say they failed in the playoffs, but it doesn't make them failures. But they learned from their mistakes. And the coaching staff, I believe that they looked at themselves and figured out, we've got to do things different. We've got to adapt our game. We played a certain style of hockey here for 4 years under Barry Trotz. They kind of did everything the same last year. And then this year, they changed forechecking schemes, the back-checking schemes, the way they're addressing the power play, the penalty kill. So you look at all those simple adjustments that they're making have actually added up to a lot of huge success in this season of leading the National Hockey League. So I think Todd has definitely upped his game, improved where he's at. We all know that he's an intelligent coach, but I think he's made massive amount of improvement from last season as to how they're playing the game right now.
And fellas, as a head coach, you often come in and say, you know what, I'm going to watch over everything. And I now believe that he's a conductor rather than a guy that just takes over everything. He conducts the orchestra, which is his assistant coaches, who he delegates stuff to do. When I had talked to him earlier this season, he said that was an adjustment. He wanted to be the be-all and do-all. He wanted to make sure the D were running right, wanted to make sure the forwards, the penalty kill, the power play. Well, he's learned how to delegate to his very fine coaching staff those aspects of the game. And he's been able, I think, to focus on the master plan, the game plan, the tweaks within the game with more authority, more clarity. And because of that, in his 107th game today, Brent, his win percentage is over 70%. And I think now he's settled in. It's his team. It's not Barry Trotz's team anymore. And that, to me, has carried over into the locker room and onto the ice.
Well, first off, gentlemen, it's good to be back with you guys.
Yeah, Brent, nice to see you, my friend.
It's been a little while. I agree with the both of you guys. You know, I had the luxury to play with Todd in St. Louis a few years back, and also had him as an assistant coach there in Pittsburgh. So I know a little bit about his demeanor. You know, he's one of those guys that chooses his words carefully. He's very calm, cool, and collected. I think you've seen him be a little bit more passionate behind the bench, and I think that goes into what you were saying, Craig, is that it's his team now, and he feels that responsibility a little bit more, and that way he can be a little bit, he can be a little looser with his words behind the bench. But I think, you know, has a fantastic mind for the game, especially defensively. Him being a defenseman when he was in the National Hockey League, and I just think that, you know, a good family man. He's got the trust of the dressing room, and you can see that the way the guys speak about him. They really trust the things he's putting together and the way he delegates authority around that dressing room.
I think it comes down to that in a nutshell, but it's also the fact that I think he's able to lash out when need be. You know, he's had some choice words to the team when they faltered, like against Phoenix and teams like that, and accountability. And I think his communication is a big asset. You notice everybody around the NHL is going younger to guys that communicate better. Well, he's at the top of that list as far as communicating what he wants. And when the players respond, that's when the Capitals are best. So I think he's learned that authority to be able to handle the locker room. He's had so much experience, fellas, being an assistant coach, then becoming a head coach sometimes has its, bumps and bruises. I don't think he's had that because, Brent, you mentioned the success he's had in Pittsburgh and then under Barry Trotz. Albie, I just think he has picked the right spots. He's made the right tweaks, especially in the lines up front and defensive pairings on the fly. And that, to me, is a sign of a big-time coach.
Well, I'm just happy that he's made adjustments after the 7-game playoff loss to the Carolina Hurricanes last year. And speaking of big assets, didn't we have a lot of coaches who had choice words for us every night, Locker? So we look at the National Hockey League this year, and a lot of people are, you start to give out the Norris Trophy early, the Rookie of the Year, and the Coach of the Year. So the four guys, when you look at the Coach of the Year, you've got Todd Reirden, Barry Trotz, Dave Tippett, and Rick Tocchet. When you look at all of them, I think Todd isn't going to get the accolades he deserves unless this team continues to go first place, start to finish. And you look at what he's been able to do, adjust the lines. You've had injuries, salary cap issues, everything that you have. I look at Barry Trotz. To me, he may have to be the front runner. He doesn't have an Alexander Ovechkin. He doesn't have a Kuznetsov. He doesn't have the stellar lineup that the Caps have, and they're stifling teams and winning games, it seems, at will right now.
Yeah, I'm going back to, a few years ago with Todd, and you're talking about he almost had a foot out the door. You got to remember that the Caps management, I think, had something in their mind for down the road that he was going to present a good presence behind the bench. We talked about his how intelligent he is behind the bench and what he does in his dressing room. So I think that they've made a good choice keeping him here and putting him at the head spot there, guys.
Yeah, remember at the time, there was names bannered around like bring in Iron Mike Keenan to set this team straight and all that type of stuff. And I'm sure they talked to a lot of coaches to try to bring him in after Barry Trotz exited, but it all came down to how he interviewed, how Dick Patrick, Ted Leonsis, and everybody involved in the organization viewed Todd. And to me, it came down to his communication, his excellent acumen with the players as far as understanding what makes them tick and what doesn't. And the thing is, it's harder sometimes to deal with these elite guys, and the Caps are loaded with them, than sometimes the guys that are second and third liners. The big boys have to be dealt with differently, and I think Todd's found a nice, happy place throughout the Caps lineup.
Thank you guys so much for all your insight. Looking forward to see how this Coach of the Year race shakes out throughout the rest of the season.
Thank you, Jordan.
Well, tonight is a very special night at Capital One Arena because it is Hockey Fights Cancer Night, you guys. And the Caps actually hosted a Make-A-Wish event yesterday. And Todd Reirden surprised 6 kids with a big announcement. Their reactions were priceless. Take a listen to this.
The problem I'm having is I need some help for this game. The last time we had to come from 4 goals behind to beat this team. And that was pretty stressful for our team, and a little bit lucky too. So I need some help from 6 special people tomorrow. You guys are all sitting here where you are right now because I want to name 6 different people to be part of our starting lineup to help us win against the Vancouver Canucks tomorrow. Leanna. Leanna, are you willing to accept a starting position?
Yeah.
That's you. Congratulations. You and I will definitely see each other tomorrow.
But the problem is I can't really skate.
You'll think the coaches, my staff, and I, we're going to teach you because we need your help tomorrow. Are you in?
I'm in.
All right. That's our starting 6 for tomorrow. It will be on the ice with our players.
How about that? There's your starting lineup for tonight. Breaking news, right?
That is amazing.
We've got our pins on for tonight, our signs. This is who we're fighting for tonight. And I know this is a very special night for you and your family, Courtney.
Yeah, it is. And I'm going to be fighting for my mom and stage manager, Luann. These are some of the toughest women that I know, and even those kids, to just bring a smile to their face. Sorry, it's emotional. And just to shout out to the very strong, everybody, women, men, children that are fighting this devastating disease. And a huge shout out to the Washington Capitals and the entire NHL for putting on such a great initiative.
Yeah,
it's really amazing to bring smiles to those kids' faces, to just something that they need in life to kind of pick them up.
Yeah, and we're all here supporting
Yes,
too.
yes.
I was going to say I was holding myself together for that, but
it was wonderful. No, cancer affects all of
It
our
does,
lives
affects a lot of people.
in some way, and I think with this Hockey Fights Cancer and all the different organizations that go into research and development of something to help these cancer survivors or victims. Anything we can shine a light a little
Absolutely.
more so on this disease just helps us all benefit in the long run.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very powerful night at Capital One
Absolutely.
Arena. I can say that. Well, guys, let's go ahead and talk about our score predictions tonight and our players to watch.
all right, I'm going to go with the Big Caps win. I'm going to say 4-2 over the Vancouver Canucks. Key for me is going to be the Caps transition game. Vancouver is a very fast, they're a relentless team. They like to jump on you. So that first pass and catching the Canucks in transition to me is going to be key of how quickly they can get it out.
And I'm going to go off your keys because I think you're completely right. My keys are clog up the neutral zone,
Good one.
stay disciplined and out of the box. Caps 3-2.
4-3 Caps. Lars Eller for me. Puck drop is 30 minutes
I
out.
got
at the
Lars Eller
Caps.
too.
Oh,
Jacob
love
Vrana.
it. All right, don't
200
go anywhere.
game.
Caps pregame live is coming up next.